April 1775. The American colonies stand on the brink of war. What began as protests against taxation and imperial control has spiraled into armed rebellion. The first shots have already been fired at Lexington and Concord. British troops, bloodied and exhausted, have withdrawn to the safety of Boston, but they are surrounded. Across New England, militias assemble by the thousands. Farmers, tradesmen, and craftsmen leave their homes and families to take up arms against what they see as tyranny. In makeshift camps outside Boston, they prepare for the fight ahead, untrained but filled with resolve. Inside the city, the British Army, under the command of General Thomas Gage, finds itself trapped. Nearly 6,000 redcoats occupy Boston, hemmed in by a force of more than twice their number. The rebels have cut off the land routes, while the Royal Navy keeps the harbor open for supplies. For now, both sides wait, but not for long. Boston is the heart of the rebellion. From its narrow streets came the Sons of Liberty, the Boston Tea Party, and the spark of revolution. To lose control of Boston would be to lose the symbol of British authority in America. Gage knows this, so do the colonists watching from the hills. Across the water, on the Charlestown Peninsula, rise two gentle elevations, Bunker Hill and Breed's Hill. Whoever controls those heights controls the city. From there, cannon could threaten both British ships and positions inside Boston. For the rebels, seizing the heights would tighten the noose. For Gage, it would be intolerable. In early June, reports reach British command that the colonial militia plans to occupy the Charlestown Hills. Gage decides to act first. His plan is simple: take the heights before the rebels do, secure the peninsula, and break the siege once and for all. But the colonial commanders are not idle. On the night of June 16, 1775, a detachment of about 1,000 men, led by Colonel William Prescott, silently crosses the Charles River under cover of darkness. They carry shovels, picks, and entrenching tools, not muskets at the ready, but implements of fortification. Reaching Breed's Hill, the men begin to dig. Through the long night, they carve out a strong redoubt of earth and timber, shaping the ground into walls that will soon face the fury of the British Army. By dawn, they have transformed the hill into a fortress. From Boston, the British awake to a shocking sight: rebel entrenchments overlooking the harbor. Cannon could soon be placed there, threatening the fleet and the city itself. The commanders in Boston, furious and alarmed, order an immediate assault. The die is cast. The first great pitched battle of the American Revolution is about to begin, a test of strength, discipline, and will that will define both sides for years to come. Morning, June 17, 1775. A clear, warm day dawns over Boston Harbor. As the sun rises, the British commanders gather at their headquarters and stare across the water in disbelief. Overnight, the rebels have done the unthinkable. They have built a fortress almost within cannon shot of the city. From the ramparts of Breed's Hill, earthworks, fences, and hastily piled walls now crown the ridge in the morning light.
General Thomas Gage understands the danger immediately. If the Patriots place heavy guns there, every British ship in the harbor would be within range. The city itself could be shelled. Gage cannot allow this position to stand. Orders go out at once. The army will cross the harbor, land on the Charlestown Peninsula, and drive the rebels from the hills. The task falls to Major General William Howe, one of Britain's most experienced officers, and Brigadier General Robert Piggott. Together, they will lead roughly 2,500 soldiers against the colonial fortifications. By midday, the harbor becomes alive with movement. British longboats shuttle back and forth from the city's wharves, packed with scarlet-coated infantry. Cannon fire booms from the Royal Navy ships, bombarding Charlestown's waterfront to cover the landing. Thick smoke drifts across the water, mixing with the haze of gunpowder and the summer heat. On the peninsula, the colonists watch in silence. Colonel Prescott walks the line of his redoubt, calm and steady. His men are exhausted from a night of digging, but ready to fight. Many are armed with old hunting muskets, their powder and shot limited. They cannot afford to waste a single bullet. To their left, New Hampshire regiments under Colonel John Stark take position behind a rail fence stretching toward the Mystic River. Reinforcements arrive piecemeal, some from Connecticut, others from Massachusetts, forming an uneven but determined defensive line. At around 3 p.m., the British begin their advance. Drums beat in perfect rhythm as ranks of redcoats move across the open ground, their bayonets glinting like a sheet of steel. From Boston's rooftops and church towers, thousands of spectators watch in awe. The British plan is straightforward. One column will attack the rail fence on the left, while another will strike directly at the rebel redoubt on Breed's Hill. The assault will be supported by naval guns firing from the harbor and artillery from Copp's Hill on the Boston side.
History is not just the past. It is the greatest story ever told. From the rise of mighty empires to their fiery collapse, history has shaped the world in ways that continue to amaze us. From warriors who carved kingdoms to revolutions that changed the course of civilization, every moment holds a story worth remembering. From ancient wonders like the Great Wall and Da Vinci's timeless sketches to humanity reaching for the stars with the Apollo 11 mission, the journey of mankind is nothing short of extraordinary. This channel brings history to life through fast-paced stories, cinematic storytelling, and epic journeys across time. We explore battles, betrayals, inventions, and legends, the defining moments that shaped who we are today. If you have ever wanted to see history as if you were truly there, you have found the right place. Step into the past, relive the greatest stories ever lived, and join our journey through time. Subscribe now.
But almost immediately, the plan begins to unravel. The ground between the landing site and the hill is open, uneven, and exposed to enemy fire. The heat is suffocating, and the weight of packs, muskets, and bayonets slows the soldiers' pace. As the British approach, the defenders hold their fire. Prescott has given strict orders, not a shot until the enemy is within close range. The red line draws nearer and nearer. 100 yards, 80 yards, 60 yards. Still the Americans wait, their muskets leveled, hearts pounding. Then, at once, the hillside erupts. A blinding flash, a deafening volley. The first line of British troops is torn apart by devastating close-range fire. Men fall in heaps. Officers drop mid-command. The formation staggers, wavers, and breaks. Survivors fall back toward the shore. But General Howe rallies his men. Calmly, he reforms the ranks and orders a second assault. Drums beat again. The redcoats climb once more toward the smoking hill, stepping over their fallen comrades. Cannon fire crashes around them, but the colonial earthworks hold firm. Again, the rebels wait until the enemy is near. Another disciplined volley tears through the British lines, followed by a second and a third. The fields below Breed's Hill are littered with bodies. Some British companies lose half their men in minutes. Howe's officers fight to keep order, their uniforms soaked with sweat and blood. The assault falters a second time. The British fall back once more, the air thick with musket smoke. On the hilltop, the colonists cheer. They have repelled 2 assaults by one of the most powerful armies in the world. But victory has its cost. Their ammunition is nearly spent. Muskets grow hot and empty, and the defenders search their pouches in vain for more powder. Reinforcements on Bunker Hill, further to the rear, have not moved forward in time. confusion and exhaustion begin to spread. Down by the shore, Howe prepares for one final push. Reinforcements arrive from Boston, fresh troops, rested and armed. This time, the attack will be made at the point of the bayonet. The soldiers fix their blades, grit their teeth, and advance for a third time into the smoke and fire.
Above them, the defenders brace for the onslaught, their gunpowder gone, their resolve tested to the limit. The next few moments will decide the outcome of the Battle of Bunker Hill. The third assault begins. The ground below Breed's Hill is already a killing field, churned by cannon shot and stained with blood. Smoke drifts across the peninsula as the British advance once more, silent now, grim, determined. General Howe leads from the front, his sword drawn, his men driving forward with fixed bayonets glinting in the sunlight. Inside the redoubt, the defenders can only watch in dread. Their powder is gone. Many have fired their last shot. Others clutch empty muskets, stones, even the butts of their guns, anything that can be used as a weapon. The British line keeps coming, step after step, through smoke and fire. Then the red line reaches the walls. Bayonets flash over the parapet. The defenders fight back desperately, hand to hand, man against man. Muskets are swung like clubs, fists strike through the dust, and screams echo over the battlefield. The thin walls of earth and timber crumble under the weight of the assault. At last, the colonial line breaks. Exhausted, outnumbered, and out of ammunition, Prescott gives the order to retreat. Chaos engulfs the hill as men scramble over the earthworks and down the slope toward Charlestown Neck. British bayonets cut through the last of the defenders as they flee. The redoubt falls. The Union flag rises once again over Breed's Hill. But the victory is hollow. As the smoke clears, the scale of the British losses becomes painfully clear. More than 1,000 soldiers lie dead or wounded on the field, nearly half of all who took part. Entire companies have been destroyed. For many, it is the bloodiest day they have ever seen. The colonial losses are smaller, but still heavy. Around 450 patriots are killed or wounded, among them prominent leaders and ordinary farmers alike. Among the fallen is Dr. Joseph Warren, one of Massachusetts' most respected revolutionaries. Though offered a command, he chose to fight as a common soldier and paid with his life. His death becomes a rallying cry across the colonies, a symbol of sacrifice and defiance. As night falls, the British hold the heights, but the city remains under siege. The rebel army withdraws only a few hundred yards, still surrounding Boston from the mainland. For all their bravery, the British have gained little ground. The assault costs them far more than it earns. In Boston, the mood is grim. Officers who once dismissed the colonists as an untrained rabble now speak of their courage and discipline. The rebels may have retreated, but they have proven they can stand against the best soldiers in the world. Across the colonies, news of the battle spreads like wildfire. For many Americans, Bunker Hill becomes a symbol of hope, proof that liberty can be defended by ordinary men. The losses are mourned, but the morale of the rebellion soars. For the British, the lesson is bitter. They have taken the hill, but at terrible cost. The assault exposes the limits of their power in America and the determination of their enemy. General Howe, haunted by the carnage, realizes that brute force alone will not end this rebellion. The aftermath reshapes both armies. The colonial forces, though battered, grow more confident. In the weeks that follow, new recruits pour into their ranks. Their siege lines around Boston remain firm, even as they wait for their new commander, a tall Virginian colonel named George Washington, to take command of what will soon be called the Continental Army.
For the British, the cost of victory sends shockwaves through London. Reports of the casualties and the stubborn resistance of the colonists astonish Parliament. The Empire has won a battle, but faces the grim truth: this war will not be easily won. The Battle of Bunker Hill stands as the first major test of the American Revolution, a battle fought not for territory, but for conviction. Though technically a British victory, it marks the true awakening of a nation's will to fight for independence. The fields of Charlestown are silent now. The guns have fallen quiet. But in that silence, the world has changed. The courage shown on Breed's Hill will echo through every campaign that follows, from Boston to Yorktown, until the dream of liberty becomes reality. The smoke of Bunker Hill has barely settled when the full weight of its meaning begins to sink in. Across the colonies, word of the battle travels fast, carried in letters, newspapers, and whispered accounts from those who fought. The story is told and retold, a small, untrained army of farmers and craftsmen holding back the might of the British Empire. The loss of the hill is seen not as defeat, but as proof that the colonies can stand and fight. In towns from New England to the Carolinas, men step forward to enlist, their confidence renewed by the courage of those who stood at Breed's Hill. Militias swell in number. The dream of independence, once whispered, begins to take root in every corner of the continent. In Boston, however, the situation remains desperate. The British Army holds the city, but it is trapped and dependent on supplies from across the Atlantic. Around them, the rebel lines tighten like a noose. When George Washington arrives outside Boston in early July 1775, he takes command of what is now called the Continental Army, an army born in chaos, inspired by defiance, and forged by the lessons of Bunker Hill. Washington quickly sees the challenges ahead. The soldiers lack discipline, weapons, and powder. There are few uniforms, fewer cannons, and little coordination between the colonies. Yet he also sees something else: resolve. These men have faced British bayonets and lived. They have stood against the strongest army in the world and refused to break until their ammunition ran dry. That spirit becomes the cornerstone of the new army he builds. Washington imposes order, discipline, and unity. He transforms volunteers into soldiers and their defiance into determination. In the long war to come, they will need every ounce of it. For the British, the lesson of Bunker Hill is equally profound. Gone is the confidence that sheer military might can crush the rebellion. The officers who once called the colonists rabble now know they are facing a determined enemy, fighting for principle rather than pay. Each victory will demand a price, and each hill will have to be taken at the point of a bayonet. In London, the reports of the battle shock Parliament. The casualty lists, more than 1,000 men lost for a patch of ground, stir outrage and disbelief. But instead of conciliation, the response is fury. The government resolves to crush the rebellion completely. Reinforcements are ordered, fleets prepared, and new generals appointed. The empire will return in force. Yet, on the other side of the ocean, the colonies are changing. The blood spilled on the slopes of Breed's Hill hardens their resolve. Appeals to the king and parliament now ring hollow. Reconciliation seems impossible. Leaders like John Adams and Benjamin Franklin begin to see the path ahead clearly. The time for negotiation is over. The time for independence has come. The battle also reshapes how the world views the conflict. Observers in Europe take note. The colonists are not a fleeting mob, but a people fighting for something greater: self-government, freedom, and the birth of a new order. The war has entered a new phase, and the outcome is far from certain.
Back in Boston, the British occupation grows increasingly untenable. Disease spreads, supplies run thin, and morale sinks. The colonial siege lines tighten. The lessons of Bunker Hill are put into practice. Trenches are dug deeper, cannon are mounted higher, and the men who once fought with farm tools now wield the discipline of soldiers. The next spring, with artillery brought from Fort Ticonderoga by Henry Knox, Washington finally gains the upper hand. From the heights surrounding Boston, his guns command the harbor. The British fleet, unable to hold its position, is forced to withdraw.
On March 17, 1776, the Redcoats evacuate the city. Boston is free. It is a triumph built on the sacrifice of those who fought and died on Breed's Hill 9 months earlier. The courage of that day has not been forgotten. It has inspired a nation still in its infancy, a nation that will face years of war, hardship, and uncertainty before its independence is secure. The Battle of Bunker Hill stands as a defining moment of the American Revolution. It is remembered not for who held the ground at the end of the day, but for what it revealed: the unyielding determination of a people willing to fight for liberty. For the British, it was a costly victory. For the Americans, it was the beginning of belief. A belief that would grow stronger with every battle, every winter camp, and every hardship endured. From the smoldering fields of Charlestown rose a new understanding that courage, conviction, and the will to be free could stand against the armies of kings. And though the hill was lost, the revolution had truly begun.